Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to talk about tense. It's a very important topic in Unit 1. Bibliography use, does our understanding English grammar, Unit 1, Yun, advanced grammar in use, Leach, meaning and the English verb, Prodromal grammar and vocabulary for first certificate, Taylor, common mistakes at first certificate. Let's have a look at the inflectional categories of the verb. We said that verbs inflected for tense, that is to say past and present aspect, perfective, imperfective, progressive or resultative, mood, indicative, imperative, subjunctive, voice, active or passive, and person, first, second or third, and number, singular and plural. Today in this class, we're going to focus on the first category, tense, right? And we're going to see past and present and future, but future will be a form, not a tense, right? We're going to see why in a minute. And so what's the difference between tense and time? Time is a universal concept, common to all mankind, independent of language. According to Combry, time can be represented as a straight line with the past represented conventionally to the left and the future to the right, the present being in point of time in constant motion, right? So it's past, now, and future. Whereas tense is a linguistic expression of grammatical category, one of the inflectional categories of the verb, right? So this is a label we are going to use, right? Time is the philosophical concept. It refers to the form of the verb that expresses a time relation. Tense locates a situation in time, right? So time has to do with the universal concept, as we said. It's related to philosophy, but in grammar, we're going to discuss just tense, right? Okay, let's pass on to the present simple. Yes, the uses are permanent situations or states. He lives in a huge house, eternal truths or laws of nature. That is the generic use of the present simple. As when we say water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Repeated habitual actions with adverbs of frequency. He is always on time. She usually goes to the club. Professions and abilities. New sports commentaries, that's the instantaneous or simultaneous with the present moment. Nicole Kidman acts very well in this film. In this case, it's called instantaneous because you describe the action at the same time as you see it. If you say Messi passes the ball to Mr. Smith or whoever, you're making a comment, right, on what you see. In this case, it's a sports commentary. Stage directions, Mary comes in. Again, this is an instantaneous use of the present simple because the action takes place at the same time as you utter it. With performative verbs, we said that these are verbs that show the action, again, as you state the activity. When you say, I declare you man and wife, or wife and wife, right there, these are performative verbs because you utter the verb, you declare, and that's an action per se. Timetables, programs, reviews. Yeah, this is the present simple, that's the tense, but it has a future meaning. So here we can see that it expresses future time when we say the plane lands at 7. Adverbs used with the present tense, we know this, every week, month, every year. Adverbs of frequency, in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, at night, and on weekdays. What should we remember about adverbs of frequency? We have to remember the place within the sentence, right? We can say that adverbs of frequency come before the main verb, when the main verb is not the verb to be. Yes. So, in other words, the adverb of frequency is placed between the subject and the verb. So you say she usually drives to the office, right? When the verb to be is used, then the adverb of frequency is going to be placed after the verb, right? When you say, for example, she's usually late, right? Or he is always grumpy, right? The adverbs rarely, seldom, and never have a negative meaning, right? Of course, as they express, yes, lack of frequent activity, then you cannot use them with a negative word. Yes, seldom and rarely mean the same as hardly ever. When you say she seldom goes to the doctor, you mean she hardly ever or she rarely goes to the doctor. We discussed this last class, verbs that can't be used in the progressive aspect. These are called stative verbs. The verb to be, the verb to have, meaning possession, verbs of perception, hear, smell, taste. Yes, there's a difference between verbs of perception and verbs of attention that express voluntary actions. Verbs of cognition, also called mental verbs, think, believe, right, remember. Verbs of volition, want, fancy. Like relational verbs, appear, seem, resemble, consist of. Performative verbs, answer, appoint, beg, declare, inform, promise. Okay, let's pass on to the present continuous, right? The present continuous is used to describe activities in progress at the moment of speaking. She's studying French now, they are reading a book, or fixed arrangements or plans in the near future. So, in other words, a future event anticipated by virtue of a present plan or arrangement. So, when you say we're having dinner tonight, this is because you have already made arrangements for that activity, right? It's a plan, okay? Insistence, annoyance, surprise, irritation, or criticism, generally used with others such as always, continually, constantly. We say she's always yawning or you're always interrupting. There, you're expressing a tone of anger, right? So this is crucial because when you use the adverb always in the present simple, this tone is non-existent, right? You just mean frequency in the present simple. Also temporary situations, actions going on around the present time. She's staying with Pat these days. That is to say, temporary situations not necessarily happening at the present time. Changing or developing situations or trends with inchoative verbs. Inchoative verbs are the same as process verbs. They denote the start, the development, or the final stage of a change of condition. Is getting fatter and fatter. Our supplies are running low. Or she is turning or becoming tired. Yes, turn, go, grow. Those are inchoative verbs. Time expressions used with the present continuous, now, at the moment, today, tonight, always. And of course, the verbs that can be used with a progressive aspect, or in other words, with the present continuous, they are called dynamic verbs. So here we have activity verbs, process verbs, or inchoative, transitional event verbs. Yes, because they have very, very short duration. Arrive, follow, die. Momentary verbs, hit, jump, cough. And in the progressive tense, they suggest repetition. Yes, the child jumped for joy, it's once, but if you say the child was jumping for joy, of course, you imply that he jumped several times, right? So, in a nutshell, the present simple is used to describe permanent actions, right? Whereas the present continuous is used to describe temporary actions, actions that are expected to end sooner or later. When you say, where does Henry work or where does she work? You imply that this job is permanent for some reason. But when you say, where is he working? It's something temporary. It may change at any minute. The present perfect. The present perfect is a very interesting tense, especially in English. It causes some confusion, yes, among students. Generally, the present perfect is associated with the unfinished use, that is to say, to express actions that started in the past and they still continue, or they continue up to now, but it's not always the case. Yes, in the present perfect, or when we use the present perfect, we can imply that the action is unfinished, that is to say, the action continues up to now, or the action is finished, but if it's finished, it has some sort of effect on the present. It has present relevance. So let's begin with the unfinished use, especially used with adverbs of duration, state to have it, lasting up to the present moment, with stative verbs and with dynamic verbs, right? Generally, we use since and for. Since indicates the starting point, right? So you can use since plus a date. Also, since can be followed by a clause. You can say she has lived here since she got married, and that clause, yes, the tense of that clause should be the past simple, right? Or you can use for to indicate a period of time. Now, let's move on to the finished uses of the present perfect, right? We can talk about the resultative past, that is to say, past action with the present result. The taxi has arrived. Yes, or I've lost my car keys. The idea is, okay, you lost them in the past, but there's a result in the present, and the result is that you can't open the car. Indefinite past experience, the number of events is unspecified, and the time the event took place is unknown, right? Or even if it's known, you're not interested. So when you say, have you been to New York? You're not interested in the time of that event, the time at which that event took place, but you're interested in the experience, right? If that action really occurred. This is an important point because we're going to see that when you use the past simple, you express definite actions. Another example of finished use is finished action plus indefinite past, not yet completed. So the period is open in a way. This morning, today, this week, this month, this year. I haven't seen John this week. Why do you use the present perfect? Of course, the action, in this case, it's negative, but not seeing John, let's say, took place in the past, but the week is open. That's why we use the present perfect, right? The week hasn't ended. Recent past time, we just already lately, I have watched many films recently. That's the use to express recent actions. Now, what's the difference between have gone and have been, right? Then we will see the preposition, but have gone, generally when you use have or has gone, yes, you're talking about a recent action. right? But the person has gone away, or the person has left, and she or he hasn't returned, hasn't come back. So when you say, where is Susan? She has gone to the bank, or she has gone to the club. The idea is that she's still in the club. Whereas when you say, where is Susan? Yes. And well, if you say she has been to the bank, you would imply that she has returned, right? But not with that question. But if I ask you, have you been to New York? I will say, have you been, right? Because the idea is that I want to find out about the experience, right? I know that you're already here in Buenos Aires. There we have the difference. She has been to New Orleans. She visited New Orleans and she is here now. Or she has been in Hague for 4 years. She's in Hague now, right? That case is because you use have been in. The idea is that the action still goes on. Yes. And when you say she has been to New Orleans, the idea is that she has come back, right? Time expressions used with the present perfect simple. We discussed that before. We use already. Yes, already generally goes between the auxiliary and the main verb. But you can have, or you can find already in final position. You can say, we have seen the film already. Still comes before the auxiliary. In negative statements, it still hasn't found the keys, right? So it precedes the auxiliary, and yet we have to remember is used in negative statements and in questions, right? Always at the end, but you can find some cases where you have the adverb, right, placed next to the auxiliary. So that is to say, between the auxiliary and the main verb. But the most frequent use, or the most frequent place of yet, is at the end of the sentence, in negative statements, of course. Well, you can also use just for recent actions, always, right? For experience, ever for experience in questions, never, again, experience, and so far for something that is unfinished. I have sent 20 invitations so far. Okay, let's pass on to the past simple. Past simple is used to describe, as we said before, definite actions. That's why we said that when you use the past simple, you imply or you express definite past. You indicate activities, states in the past without indicating any connection with the present. This is crucial, right? There's no link to the present time. Paul and Lucy arrived 10 minutes ago. It's a punctual action in the past. For actions that happened immediately one after the other in the past, first he read the message, then he called his boss, right? So these are, yes, sequential actions. Past habits, you can use used to, right? For habits in the past. Generally, when you use used to, you imply that the action was longer than when you use the past simple, right? If you say he used to smoke when he was young, for example, yes, as opposed to he smoked when he was young, well, generally you are emphasizing that it was a habit. If you say he used to smoke, he smoked more than once, right? Time expressions used yesterday, last month, last week, last year, in plus a given year, ago, when, how long ago, when was the last time you, and past simple. So, if we compare past simple used with actions that happened at a definite time in the past, yes, whereas present perfect is used to express indefinite past. Also, we use the past simple to talk about people who are no longer alive. This is crucial when you talk about people who have passed away. You can't use the present perfect, right? Let's see, past simple is used for action that started and finished in the past, right? Punctual action, of course, the action is already finished. Whereas when we use the present perfect, the action may continue up to the present. Maybe it's finished, as we discussed before, but it may continue. The example there is he has been working as a waiter for 10 years. We use the past simple or past continuous to give more details about a piece of news. I was talking to Carol on the phone when he came in. And when we use the present perfect, you announce the piece of news. So this is also crucial. When you give pieces of news, generally you start out, or if you watch the news, they start out, yes, by presenting the news using the present perfect, and then they switch to the past to give more details, right? Okay, present perfect continuous. What's the form of the present perfect continuous? As you may remember, it's the subject, then the auxiliary have or has, then been, and then ing. The present perfect continuous shares the main use, right, the unfinished use with the present perfect simple. So we use it to put emphasis on an activity that started in the past and continues up to now. But the difference, I would say, with the present perfect simple is that the emphasis in this case is on the duration of the activity. Susan has been reading a book for 2 hours. You are being emphatic about the time she took to read. And of course, we have finished usage uses action that started and finished in the past, lasted for some time, and remember that the result is evident, right? He has been playing football. Yes, you can see that he looks dirty, his clothes are dirty. Yes, so it's a past action with a visible result. To express anger, who has been reading my business papers? Again, the time expressions are how long, for, and since, lately, and recently. Okay, what about the past continuous? The past continuous is used for an action that was in progress in the past, yes, not necessarily interrupted, yes, but we focus on the middle of the action, yes. At 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, they were sitting at a cafe. When did they start drinking coffee, or when did they meet? We don't care, right? The important thing is that at some point at 3 o'clock, they were sitting there. For an action which was in progress, when another action interrupted it, so of course we use the past continuous for the action in progress and the participle for the action that interrupted the other one. He was walking when he slipped on a banana. For 2 more simultaneous past actions, she was watching TV while he was doing the dishes. So the idea here is that you can use while to express simultaneity, right? To describe the atmosphere, the setting in an introduction of a story. This is crucial for background description. You're going to use past continuous. Todd and Mary were riding through the forest, or the birds were singing, the wind was blowing. Time expressions when, while, all day, morning. And now we pass on to used to, be used to, and would. Yes. We can say, we discussed it before, but this is important. Used to is followed by the infinitive form, yes, to express past habits. You can express states or actions. Okay, so you can say he used to be, yes, it's a state because it's a verb to be. He used to be very hardworking when he was a teenager. But you can also express an action. He used to work at a factory when he was right, or in his 30s, right? So you can use used to plus infinitive to express states, static situation, or a dynamic situation, actions. When do you use would then? You use would to talk about repeated actions, yes? So you cannot use would to describe states. You cannot say he would be hardworking when he was a teenager, right? Would is used to talk about or to express past habits. It's a very poetical use of would, right? Generally found in written. You're not going to maybe use it when you speak to a friend, right? But you can express repeated action, yes, in the past. Now, what's the main difference, yes, with be used to or get used to? Generally, this causes confusion, right? Because you have the same word used, yes, with two different meanings, yes, that have nothing to do. When you use be used to plus a noun plus a pronoun plus a verb in ing, yes, you're expressing habitual actions, but you're expressing familiarity. That's the idea and the notion. If you say, for example, I'm used to getting up early, there is that you are familiar with that. You find it easy, you're okay with that, right? Now, this is in terms of meaning, yeah? So the idea is that you're familiar with something, you're in the habit of. It's the same as get accustomed or to be accustomed to something. But the important thing is that after to you need to use ing, and you would say, well, but after to we generally use the infinitive. It's not always the case. We're going to see that to in English is the infinitive marker, and that's why after to you use a verb in infinitive. I want to travel, but you can also use an ing form, in other words, a gerund. How do you know that? Well, you can apply or you can do a test and see if a noun fits, right? If a noun fits after to, then you know that it's a preposition. So if you can say they're used to hot weather, yes, and weather is a noun, then that means that to is a preposition, and then, yes, you have to use the gerund, because after prepositions, you know that the gerund is used. That's one of the options. Okay, more about this later. We're going to practice this. You can also express an action that you intended to do, but in some way was interrupted with was going to plus infinitive. She was going to buy a new watch, but unfortunately she couldn't afford one. Yes, so that's as far as past simple is concerned. Past perfect. What's the form of the past perfect? Subject, had, and past participle, or the third column, right? Okay, we use the past perfect to express an action before another past action, right? They had already booked the table when they went to the restaurant. The idea is that booking the table occurred before going to the restaurant. To describe a sequence of events, after when he had dinner, he went to bed. Yes. Here you can use also the past simple. The past simple wouldn't be wrong, right? When he had dinner, he went to bed. But if you use the past perfect, you are emphasizing the anteriority of the action, right? Of course, in reported speech, we're going to see that when you have an utterance in the past simple, you have to switch and to turn that tense into past perfect. With verbs expressing past hope, expectation, intention, desire, to indicate that the hope was not realized. We had hoped that you would be able to visit us, so they had wanted to help, but they couldn't get there on time. Time expressions before ready stands for just, until, when, by the time. Some comments before we pass on to past perfect continuous. After, generally, when you have before, when you have by the time, you use the past simple, right? And then another clause with the past perfect. An example would be, before I had lunch, or before I cooked lunch, I had talked to Susan. Yes? So that means that first you talked to Susan and then you had lunch. This is when you have before or by the time. Whereas when you use after, the past perfect is followed. Yes, the past perfect follows. After she had finished her homework, she decided to text her friend. So the idea is that first she finished her homework and then she texted her friend. Past perfect continuous. What's the form? It's had, of course, the subject had been plus ing to put emphasis on the duration of the action, which started and finished in the past, before another past action. Of course, when you use the past perfect, this applies to past perfect simple as well, and continuous. You need to talk about or to refer to two actions, right? And you show anteriority. They had been skating together for 5 years before they entered the competition. For an action that lasted some time in the past and whose result was visible, she had been working hard that day, so she was tired. Same expressions for since, how long, before, until. Here you have, right, the comparison. We can say that past simple is used for actions which happened immediately one after the other, right, in a sequence. The past continuous for actions in progress in the past. Yes, maybe there's interruption, maybe not. And the past perfect is used for actions that happen before another past action. Now we pass on to future forms. Yes. The future, we call it form. It's not a tense. We said that it's just the present and the past tense. Will expresses modality of expectation and prediction. Yes, it's the speaker's judgment about a way of viewing a future event. But the verb does not inflect, yes, for the future tense. There's nothing in the verb that changes. We add another auxiliary, and this is will. Okay, generally use will for predictions about the future. Use with verbs like think, believe, be sure, be afraid, adverb perhaps. So the idea is that when you use will for predictions, these predictions are based on your judgment, on your opinion. If you say, I think it will rain today, it's something that came to mind, but you don't have evidence, right? It's a prediction made based on your personal opinion. Also for spontaneous decisions or offers, when you say, I'll give you a hand, something that comes to mind or that you come up with that, but it's not something that you've been thinking about. For promises, I hope pollution levels will drop soon, right? For requests, will you open the door for me? Here the meaning is more formal. I'm be going to is used for plans, intentions, or ambitions. I'm going to employ more stuff. I'm going to travel, or she's going to get married. Yes, those examples suggest intention or plan. Also, you can express, you can talk about prediction based on evidence. Look at him, he's going to win the race. So there are some elements in the present that allow you to make this prediction, right? It's very different from the other one. We use will generally to talk about predictions based, as we said, on your personal opinion. Now, we can use the present continuous to express future time. This is interesting because the tense would be present continuous, but the time, yes, would be future. Fixed arrangements in the near future. He's leaving for Amsterdam in an hour. Present simple, used to what's used when we refer to programs or schedules. The film starts in 10 minutes. And then we pass on to the future continuous. The form is subject will be plus ing, of course, with the inversion of order in the question and the addition of not negative statements. You use it for actions which will be in progress. This time next week I'll be skiing in Austria, or tomorrow at 10 a.m. Not during lockdown, but you can say she will be playing tennis. And also for actions that will definitely happen in the future as a result of a routine. This is interesting. It's like something that will happen as a matter of fact. I'll be meeting Susan next week, right? Or we'll be having classes in the following weeks. This is something that has already been arranged. Also, when we ask politely about somebody's plans, you can say, will you be going out later? Time expressions used with the future simple: tomorrow, tonight, next week, and today is the day after tomorrow, in a week, in a month. And the future perfect, right? The future perfect, well, the form first is subject will have past participle, the variation for negative statements or for questions, used for actions that will be finished before the stated future time. We say they will have finished the meeting before 4 o'clock this afternoon. The idea is that you are emphasizing the completion of the activity. Yes, you set a timeline, that is to say 4 o'clock, and you say that this action will be completed or finished before that time. Before, by then, by the time. One thing before we pass on to future perfect continuous, generally when you use expressions with by the time, you tend to use the present simple, right? And not the future perfect. So, for example, by the time she arrives home, you will have cooked the cake, right? Or I will have tidied up by the time you get back. That's the idea of the future perfect. The form here is will have been plus ing, future perfect continuous. And generally, we emphasize the duration of an activity up to a certain point or certain time. By the time he retires, he will have been working for the same company for 30 years. So It's very much like the future perfect simple, but here the emphasis is on the duration of the action. This is what I said before, yes, that the present simple should be used after by the time, yes, when you use those expressions with future reference. And this is also crucial. When you, then we will see this when, yes, we have a look at adverbial clauses. But when you have a clause is a structure of subject and verb, starting with when, before, after, until, as soon as, and then a subject and a verb following that structure. The tense used should be present simple and not the future, right? So you have to say that when he comes, we will see him. Of course, you can invert the order and say we will see him when he comes. But the idea is that after these connectors, you cannot use the future. Of course, the meaning of the clause is future, but the present simple is used. The same happens in our language. Expressing the future in time clauses, the present perfect can also be used. Yes, here the emphasis is on the completion of the action. I go to bed after I finish my work. That's perfectly correct. But you can also say, I'll go to bed after I have finished my work. So when do we use shall? You must have heard and you must have used shall, I'm sure. Generally, you use it for office. Shall we go for a walk? Or in statements about the future, just with the pronouns I and we, right? He was a good friend. Yes, we shall miss him badly, right? In current English, we do not use shall or shan't with other subjects, right? That's the end of the presentation. I hope you have understood most of it. If not, of course, you can send me your queries or doubts or concerns, and I'll be glad to help you out. Bye.